Hello, my name is Anthony Chara, and I want to thank you for clicking on the link so that you can watch this video because I'd like to tell you a little bit about the contents of my upcoming 4-day apartment investing mastery bootcamp. I'm going to take you through the 7 steps that you need to learn in order to create generational wealth for you and your families. So step 1 is about locating properties. We're going to spend about 3 to 4 hours on analyzing markets, the different factors that I look at in those markets to determine things like population growth, rent growth, job growth, all kinds of things that go along with a really vibrant market. Once you figure out a market that you want to purchase in, then I'm going to share with you a bunch of different ways that you can find properties for sale, both on market, things like going to real estate brokerage websites, and off market ways to find deals like mailing letters and some other topics. Once you find a deal, then the next step is to do what I call a quick analysis. You're going to spend anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes analyzing the numbers for your particular deal to see if you want to go to the next step, which is putting in an offer. But before we get there, let me tell you a little bit more about the quick analysis. Certainly the first time or the first several times that you do the quick analysis, it's not going to take you 15 to 30 minutes. It might take you 1 or 2 or 3 hours to go through the process because you need to learn the process, but it is like muscle memory. So think about it this way. When you first started driving a car, when you got in, so somebody was teaching you and you got in, you figured out that you had to move or adjust your seat so you could reach the pedals and the steering wheel. Once you got the seat adjusted, then you adjusted your mirrors, you put on your seat belt. Then they told you to put the key in the ignition, or nowadays you don't even have to put a key in the ignition, right? You just have to push a button. But before you push a button, what do? Right? You have to put your foot on the brake. Then you push the button or turn the key. And then you have to put the car into drive or reverse, right? Because you're either going forward or backwards. You need to figure those things out. Well, when you first started learning, you had to think about all of it. You had to think about looking over your shoulder. You had to think about putting on your turn signal. You had to think about whether or not it was safe to move out into traffic. Well, it's the same thing with the quick analysis. It's not going to be quick the first few times that you do it. But now, just like when you get in the car, right, after you do it a while, now you get in, you don't even think about it. You just get in and boom, 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 and away you go, and you're driving down the road because it's right. It's unconscious consciousness, which is the level that you want to get to. So that's the quick analysis phase. So assuming that the numbers make sense, then, or I should back up, if they don't make sense, then there's some what if columns and some software that comes along with my home study course that you can look at to say, okay, what if you increase or decrease rents? What if you increase or decrease vacancy? What if you increase or decrease expenses? How does the financing affect the deal? And as long as you can go through and adjust those numbers and get the deal to work, doing some things easily without forcing the deal to look better, then you move on to the next phase, which is putting in an offer. So again, we're going to spend 3 to 4 hours on locating properties, 3 to 4 hours on the quick analysis. Then we're going to spend 6 to 7 hours on the offer phase, because within the offer phase, I'm going to be teaching you some other strategies as well, like negotiation strategies, due diligence, and even financing strategies, because you need to know those things in order to put in an intelligent offer to the seller to convince the seller to sell the property to you and not to somebody else. So throughout the offer phase, I'm going to be sharing that stuff with you so you understand why you're offering what you're offering. And especially if the seller comes back with any type of objection, you can then respond to that objection intelligently and explain to them why you're asking them to provide what you're asking them to provide, including the paperwork that you're going to ask them to provide, so that you can confirm that the deal truly is a good deal and not just some pie in the sky that the seller's trying to, blow smoke, where to get you to overpay for a particular deal. So once the offer is accepted, the next 2 sections that we talk about in the boot camp go hand in hand. So the next one is financing. We're going to spend 4 to 5 hours on financing your deals, the traditional method of financing your deals through a lender, and then creative financing, things like seller financing or zero interest seller financing, and even getting or convincing the seller to do some type of seller carryback. The other section that goes along with financing that you'll start at the same time is the due diligence process. Now, you're probably familiar with the due diligence process on single-family homes, which in a lot of cases is just the physical due diligence, where you go out and you walk through the property. You hopefully have a really good inspector come out, check out things like the roof, the foundation, the plumbing, the electric, and hopefully you have the sewer lines scoped as well too to make sure there aren't any issues there. But when you get to commercial properties like apartments, mobile home parks, office buildings, storage facilities, and hotels, there's one extra step. That's the financial due diligence. You need to go through the profit and loss statements, things like rent rolls, tenant ledgers. You're going to ask the seller to provide bank statements. You're going to ask them to provide tax returns during the offer phase, which they may or may not agree to give to you. And sometimes they cannot give them to you and you're okay with it. And other times it might be a deal breaker, right? It all goes hand in hand, right? There is no one size fits all. And that's what you're going to learn in the 4-day boot camp. So you're going to do the physical due diligence, the financial due diligence, and assuming that all of that looks good, then you're going to go on to the closing process. But in between that and the closing process, you have negotiations. So 4 to 5 hours on financing, 4 to 5 hours on due diligence, 2 to 3 hours on negotiations. Now, there's actually negotiations that's peppered in some of these other sections too. Like I'm going to pepper in negotiations in the offer phase, the financing stage, the due diligence phase, because during due diligence, if you find some issues, you're going to have to go back to the seller and renegotiate your deal. As a matter of fact, the technical term that you'll hear, the trade term, is called retrade. So they don't say renegotiate or negotiate, it's retrade or trade. So you're going to learn a little bit of what to do with the negotiations in the offer phase. And then after you get into financing and due diligence, just in case you find something else that doesn't make sense, maybe the property isn't in the condition that they said it was in, or the financing or the financing you get from a bank doesn't work out because things have changed with the lender, or maybe the information that you gave the lender from the seller, they don't like some of that, they might change their terms. So you might have to then retrade with the seller after you go under contract. And then the final step is closing. So closing is a whopping 20 to 30 minutes. Why? Because if you do have any brain damage on your deal, it's going to happen in steps 1 through 6. So especially if you do what I teach you to do in the offer phase, when you get to closing, it should be very quick and simple and painless to get that taken care of. So that's 4 days of amazing content, from starting on a Thursday morning at early in the morning until, well, usually we start at either 8 or 9 and go to 5 or 6 in the evening. It just depends on the locale that we're in. And then each day at the end of the day, I don't run out at the end of the day and go back to my hotel room or back home or wherever I'm going. I stick around because I'm there for you all 4 days. I will stick around and help you answer your questions. I will help you analyze deals, because I want to help you become successful and then create, again, that generational wealth that you can create by buying apartments and other commercial property. So I'm here for you. And as Brian Tracy says, the more you learn, the more you earn. So I want to help you learn as much as possible over that 4-day period so that you can earn more through the transactions that you create. Okay. I've been doing this for 30 years. I started investing way back in 1993, doing single family homes for about 10 years. And then I almost exclusively transitioned into commercial properties, and more specifically apartments, but I do have some other commercial properties. I actually own 43 units at a hotel in the country of Belize. I own an agricultural investment down in the country of Paraguay. I even invested in a casino many, many years ago. So that was an interesting thing that I'll tell you more about at the boot camp. But there's a lot of great stuff that you can learn. And I want to, again, I'm there for you for that 4-day period. So go back to the email where you clicked on the link for this particular video. It will give you the current pricing and any specials on the pricing and packages that we have available. And thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, of course, again, go back to the person or the REI group that gave you this particular link, and they'll be more than happy to answer your questions, or they can get you in contact with me and I can answer any additional questions you have. So again, go back to the website. They'll have current pricing and packages and discounts and all kinds of stuff on there. And I look forward to seeing you at one of my live 4-day boot camps coming up very soon.